We have the story from The Independent. Not that I trust The Independent, so before I even read this, I'll say, yeah, I'm going to read you this, but we're going to try and break it down for you to the best of our abilities, because the media is lying for sure. UK riots live, fireworks thrown, and police van damaged in Plymouth after nearly 400 arrested across country. Anti-racist and far-right protesters have clashed in Plymouth, Devon, amid a wave of violence sweeping the UK. I don't know if far-right means anything here, because you basically have just a bunch of local native British people upset over the violence and the two-tiered policing that they've been seeing pertaining to migrants and many Muslim individuals in the country. So the media, of course, will call them far-right by the simple act of them rioting. Anti-racist, I don't know if I believe that either. We just call it far left or whatever you want to call it. But the riots have been getting absolutely crazy. They say almost 400 people have been arrested over the mob violence spreading across the UK, with the Prime Minister setting up a standing army of specialist police officers to deal with further attacks. In this story from Sky, Elon Musk hits back at Sir Keir Starmer after Civil War comments dismissed. So we have this post from the Prime Minister saying, this is not protest, it's pure violence. We will have a standing army of public duty officers. We will ramp up criminal justice. We will apply criminal law online as well as offline. We will not tolerate attacks on mosques or on Muslim communities. And then Elon Musk says, shouldn't you be concerned about attacks on all communities? Elon Musk hit the nail on the head with the hammer so perfectly, the nail was driven straight through the wood. This is exactly what many of the people in the UK have been saying, that there is a two-tier justice system. When it comes to migrants, the children of migrants, or many Muslims, they're not seeing accountability. But then you look at Tommy Robinson. The things they have done to this guy will send shivers down your spine. I don't know if you guys remember when they locked him up, they put him in jail and they weren't feeding him properly. And when he finally gets released, because the charge, it's been a long time since I covered the story, he's gaunt and frail because he's not getting the food he needs. And now they're threatening to arrest him. They're claiming that while he's on vacation, he's the one organizing and directing violence that's happening. It's not true, but it is nuts. If you ever listen to what Tommy has to say, and I'm not saying I'm like a big fan and I follow his work. I've seen videos. I've seen the videos recently of him addressing the controversy. He's like, we should have equality under the law. And I'm like, yes. He's like, all people of Britain should be treated equally. I'm like, mm-hmm. He's like, the working people are getting upset. The mass migration is not what they want. I'm like, okay. And then they're like, lock him up, throw away the key.
I mean, that's what the UK has wanted to do for a really long time. They want to be able to prosecute people for things that they say online, if it doesn't fit with the narrative and mainstream culture that they are promoting. I mean, what it makes me think of is when there was that attack on school children who were going from a school to a park in Ireland, and Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter, was really vocal about like, hey, things are not okay and we need to do something. Can you imagine if the Irish government had then been like, we don't like your tweets, you have to go to jail? I mean, no one would have been okay with it. And there's another commenter whose name is slipping my mind. He was arrested for some online posts. Wow. At the time, his wife was pregnant and they kept him incarcerated on this, Serge is nodding, so hopefully he knows his name, but she had her baby, it was just like, why are you prosecuting this guy for something that everyone knows is wrong?
This is all kicked off by that story that you guys probably heard about, the guy who stabbed 3 little girls.
That's right.
At a Taylor Swift dance event, class or something like this.
Dance class, yeah.
This guy was the child of, I believe they were Rwandan migrants. And so this really fascinating thing happens. If anybody with half a brain, you ask the people, why are you protesting? Why are you rioting? What I've been able to put together is, after this, you get a bunch of people protesting, saying that native-born Brits are not being treated fairly under the law, that this crime is getting out of hand, and they're not doing anything about it. And then in response, you get gangs coming out and fighting. So we start seeing dudes in balaclavas. They're holding up one finger. They're saying Allah Akbar. They're saying things like Free Palestine. And they begin beating random people. So there's videos that's going viral. One viral video is a 70-year-old pensioner being just beaten. He went outside for a cigarette. They attacked him. And this is just what I'm being told. I am not an expert on the UK. That this leads to a greater escalation where then you get a bunch of white British people coming out being like, you want to beat up our people. And now they set fire to like a Holiday Inn that was holding a lot of these migrants. They call them asylum seekers. I don't know if that's true, but I also don't know if it's the same as illegal immigration in the United States. So I don't know what to call them.
They go with migrants, but also that's the lefty papers that say that, so it's hard to know.
But I don't know if they're illegal if the government, because it's different in the UK, I'm not sure. So we'll just make sure that context is clear. But the important thing to understand is the media is saying, oh, the riots on the far right were all spread by disinformation because they thought a migrant stabbed these girls. And I'm like, no, they didn't. I watched the Lotus Eaters podcast. Mm-hmm. Carl Benjamin is not a moron. He knows exactly what's going on. They try to lie to you and say, oh, these poor dumb fools. If only they actually knew, but they were tricked by Tommy Robinson. Mm-hmm. No, they're upset that there are grains of sand making a heap. And so I see people online being like, it wasn't even a Muslim migrant who did it. Why are they mad? Why are they mad at Muslims? And it's like, dude, there are 100 factors that all combine to make a great weight upon the camel's back. 3 little girls being stabbed to death. It's not about whether a Muslim migrant did it. It's that this is what lit the fuse for the powder keg that was sitting there the whole time.
Well, and also like this had the setting fire to the hotel was in Rotherham. Is that how you say it? And that's where there was a grooming ring of Pakistani men grooming 1,400 British girls into like a sex trafficking ring. And that was poorly documented. It was poorly addressed. It was poorly prosecuted. And a big part of why it was poorly prosecuted was because British prosecutors didn't want to be seen as racist for going after the Pakistani men who had done this to the girls.
And every time there's a catalyst, the left likes to rush out and forget that there was all kinds of conditions that led up to it in the first place. It just becomes whatever the catalyst was, and they treat it like it's an isolated incident,
unless it's police brutality or something.
Yes, yeah, and unless it serves the narrative, right? You know, the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Levante, where are you?
Yeah, and that's what this always goes back to. And so it's this idea where we're going to ignore all of the conditions. We're going to ignore all of that. We're going to pretend like this is an isolated incident, and then we're going to categorize you because you're oppressors, right? And these are the oppressed. And so you're automatically the bad guys. You're automatically suspect. Apparently it's no longer mostly peaceful protests, right? You're the bad guys protesting. And so we're going to use the full weight of the law, the full power of government to come after you in a way that we never would have done this when it was people that we ideologically agreed with doing the protesting.
Right.
And people see enough of this and they say, fine, if the rules don't apply, then screw you. Mm-hmm. And that's the part where, again, I don't want that. I certainly don't want to see that in my country. I don't want to see it in the UK or anywhere else. But I'm a little bit shocked that the left wants to sit here and pretend as if, I can't believe this is happening. My gosh, using rioting and burning things down in order to achieve political objectives.
But they don't acknowledge that they riot, right?
No.
Like they're protesting, they're fighting the good fight. I mean, even here in the article, they're referencing the other half of this as anti-racist.
Anti-racist,
right?
yeah.
So they're doing whatever ideological God's work that they think that they're supposed to be doing, and instead they're just as culpable for the damages that are being done to these cities, because really that's what I think progressive governments fail to acknowledge, which is that they do damage by not acknowledging when things become extreme. And part of that is because I think they ultimately want them to be extreme.
I agree.
There's a teacher in hiding still in the UK for having shown a picture of Muhammad in class.
Wow.
Still in hiding.
And London, this is I think I learned this on the Lotus Eaters podcast, and I fact checked it. London is 37% native-born British. Mm. So I think the math is really obvious. People say, why is there a two-tiered system of justice? Why did Keir Starmer come out and say, violence, we will not tolerate attacks on mosques or Muslim communities? And Elon's like, shouldn't you be concerned about all communities? He should, but here's the issue. In London, 63% is not native-born British. So he's doing simple cost-benefit analysis. If I side with the minority, the majority will cause more problems in our major urban centers. Well, there you go. It's pretty obvious who to side with then. Even though the UK is still majority as a whole native-born British, the major urban centers, which basically control the seats of governance for the most part, I don't know if it's true in the UK as it is in the United States, but has massive influence, they're not British. So the politicians that are beholden to them, the lefty politicians, they're going to pander to them. One thing I did hear is these riots basically mean that Labour, the left, is done in the next election. But I think it's meaningless.
I don't think they are. They just had an election. I mean, they would have to call a new election. And Rishi Sunak called a snap election, which probably he regrets now. Because now he's out. But these guys would have to call an election. I was talking to people in Canada about Trudeau and how everybody hates Trudeau. But he's basically got a coalition with the NDP, which is the far left group. And so they don't have to call an election until sometime next year. And Polyev has to keep the conservative leader has to keep his attention strong and keep his support strong until such time as Justin Trudeau decides to call an election. I mean, it's ludicrous. That's a ludicrous system.
When I look at one of the craziest things, that was one of Labor had the largest victory I think they've had in their history post World War II. However, if you look at the total votes that they got, it was actually less than what Corbyn got in the previous election, and Corbyn got crushed. And that's because, again, people weren't voting for Labor as much as they were kicking out conservatives, which I completely understand because the Conservative Party for 14 years conserved nothing except what the left had already put into place, prior to them getting back into power. And I think we're going to start to see this in a number of places where, again, you look at this with the United States. Having an R by your name doesn't mean that you're actually a conservative or you actually want to conserve, principles. It just means that, maybe you're not quite as crazy as what's going on in some of the other places on the left. But I think more and more voters are waking up to the idea that, no, I want contrast. Are you going to fix what is going on right now? If the answer is no, you don't get my vote simply because you might be slightly less crazy. I'll hold on for somebody that's actually going to fight.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.